it does seem like there's some added level of importance with the lighting and the atmosphere and everything that goes into being a podcast for your eyes that we weren't anticipating when we started this.
No, not at all. Gone are the days of showing up in sweats and directly after a workout. Now we have to try our best to look pretty.
One of the casualties of looking pretty was a belligerent Beavs mug that took a dive off your overly sized desk as you were repositioning your ring light.
Dude.
This is what it's like to be an Instagram influencer, Benny.
Yes, my cup looks like it was just hit with a bat by Mason Guerra. It is smashed to pieces.
Well, sacrifices have to be made. This is
true.
An important episode. I don't even know what episode we're at. 144? Yeah,
144.
Last episode was the I Love You episode. No one said anything about that. I was kind of bummed. Nobody said anything about the 143, and that's okay. I feel like our demographic does have some people who were alive and well during the pager code era, but for all you youngins, a little refresher. This is an I Love You episode +1. That is 143 +1, episode 143 of the Belligerent Beavs podcast. Benny, we got some extra baseball today in the oddest of ways.
So weird. It was such a weird
How are you feeling after watching a decisive regional game at 12 p.m. Pacific on a Monday afternoon?
Oh my God. So I had put on Twitter, I was like, I'm going to feel sick around 12 tomorrow. This is last night. And then I looked at my schedule for work and I had so many calls just right around 12, like back to back to back, I think. So I had it on mute on my phone as I was going through calls. I will say, like, today I didn't really feel that nervous. I felt like we looked a lot better today than we did yesterday. But after the first inning yesterday, oh my God, I was screaming at my wall. But yeah, it was super crazy just schedule, like starting today in, what was it, the top of the fifth, bottom of the fifth? Bottom of the
fourth, yeah. One out on the bottom of the fourth, one on or no outs, whatever it was. But it was weird. I felt like the game flew by. I didn't tune in till I guess the top of the fifth. By the time I got off a call and was ready to fire up ESPN Plus, it was the top of the fifth. And then it just like breezed by. And it was odd, but I agree. We'll get into it more in a little bit, but I agree. Like something about today felt a little more pleasant despite the circumstances than what I was envisioning happening yesterday. And I was not on board with calling the game yesterday. More so, again, we'll talk more about everything from regionals in a little bit, but more so just because I'm like, why was this game played? And why was it started
yesterday?
Yeah. Like why did we start yesterday, and why did we start all these games on schedule and then just wait for us to be sitting in the rain and then have to call the game after starting it? It was all very confusing. I still don't really know the answer to this, but I do know one thing. I'm not nervous today about anybody finding Terry in my backyard because we did hear from him.
We did.
He won't be on episode 144. This is unprecedented. This is the first time I think in Belligerent Beavs history that one of us has missed 3 straight episodes.
And something crazy happens every single time. I was gone, albeit not for an entire episode, and we fired Tibasar. You were gone, and it was the beginning of the unraveling of the Pac-12 conference. And Terry's gone, and we win a regional without losing.
To Silvers, yeah.
Weird stuff
without
happens.
having to have a decisive game. And so because we know that Terry is alive, he sent us a text. What time was that at? It was at 1:28 p.m. And that handsome lad sitting there with a Heineken and a Timberwolves basketball long sleeve T-shirt was pointing up for some reason while holding his beer in the same hand. Maybe a number one. I'll go with a number one.
Yeah.
With just the most dapper smile of all time. Italy's done well for him.
I was going to say that is a smile of a man who has been in Italy for almost a month. Not a smile of a man who has been 6 foot under in your backyard for a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
He looks happy.
So again, investigators off my back. I told y'all you never find him in my backyard because if he was buried there, you weren't going to find him. But he's not buried there. So you're not going to find him. He is in Italy. It's his final night. Was today at 1:28 p.m. Time zones are weird, and he had to get up at the crack of dawn. He might be awake right now.
I bet he is awake right now. I think they're at least 8 hours ahead. So it's 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30.
Yep. So
he's up.
So he's in a car with a belligerent Beavs hired driver that has bulletproof glass and a little Terry Mobile, Pope Mobile level sunroof where he could pop out and wave to the fans in Italy. We see you, Italy listeners.
Got to get out quick before the paparazzi catches him.
Right. They're crazy out there. They are crazy out there. And I think we'll get into beers in a second because it's nothing special today. But I have to imagine if there was one, I want to ask you, Benny, if there was one person from the regionals who would drive the Italian paparazzi crazy right now, who would it be?
Who would drive the Italian paparazzi crazy? Probably Micah McDowell. He would just be yelling at them. He'd be screaming at them as they tried to catch a picture of him. Travis Bazzana would catch our attention.
Yeah, Travis Bazzana would definitely catch some Italian media attention because, I mean, that is like Italian Hawaii is going to Australia. So for him to be an Australian, they're probably all over this. But I just want to I think we should do like a quick recap of what Micah McDowell would say to the Italian paparazzi. And this is actually a live cut from what was aired on ESPN Plus. Let's hear it. Maybe. Is it going for you? It's not even going. It's doing it again. Oh, yep.
So we do have somewhat of an outline for this show that we try to keep. I had no idea where you were going with that. That was good. That is exactly what we heard on ESPN Plus last night.
That was good. I love the fire. We'll discuss more. But yeah, I would say Micah's got maybe the upper hand with what would at least sell the papers. You know, when it comes to hitting the magazines and any of the tabloids, it's the blurred out face where he's gonna have, you know, the swear graphic over his mouth as he's pointing back at the pitcher running to first base, and that would be splat on the cover of every tabloid in Italy. I bet you Terry's probably already picked up an issue.
He probably has on his way to the airport. Do you remember when we were kids on TV where they would bleep out the cuss word, but they'd also put like the black sort of bar. Pixelated or the black bar pixelated like. Yeah, they put like the pixelated stuff around their mouth, so you really couldn't tell what they were saying. They did not put the pixelated stuff around Micah McDowell's mouth last night.
No, that was very easy lip reading, and I have very good hearing, and so for me, I never have been good about reading lips, and I've never tried. And I read that crystal clear.
Oh, yeah.
And then the beeps helped, right? Because at least my version of ESPN Plus got beeps. Maybe because I have kids on my Disney Plus account that shares my ESPN Plus account. But somebody was there live, ready to do some real-time edits. So shout out to you, ESPN Disney person, sitting in some sort of cave tossing out swear bleeps on live TV. I'm just kidding. They didn't do that for me, but I kind of wish they would have. It would have made it even better, like way better.
Oh man, I saw some Oregon State fans. I wouldn't say frustrated, but just more so like disappointed in Micah McDowell. And look, I don't think the pitcher was trying to throw inside. It clearly, like, all the pitchers were out of control yesterday, but the fire that he had, just like regardless of the situation, is exactly what you want to see with this team. It was great.
Yeah, and I think that is like an energy and a fire that fans have been clamoring for. I get it that baseball has this history of a gentleman's game, having respect for, your opponents. But let's not pretend that every single fan that would prefer baseball to be played that way does not also love a good brawl. Okay?
Yeah.
So there's nothing better than a benches clearing baseball brawl. Not saying I was asking for one last night or wishing for one last night, but that's the kind of mentality and attitude and feistiness between opponents that does lead to those. And so I'm all about it. It's like edging like to a brawl, and I'm happy to be a participant and a viewer of said edging. And I think that might be the first time I've ever used that phrase.
Hey, listen, I will say, as an avid Seattle Mariners fan, the Mariners had one benches clearing. It was a brawl. Yeah, there were like punches thrown last year. It was against the Angels. And after that game, they went on to rattle 13 straight wins off. So that shit helps. Like,
it does. It's a motivator, man.
For sure.
I mean, that's something that you galvanize your team.
Yeah.
One, because, well, it could go either way, I guess. If you're out there chirping at the pitcher and you start a brawl and your entire dugout stays put, I think you've got some team chemistry issues. But if they come out and support you and they're out there ready to back you up, everybody feels so much like emboldened as a team at that point.
Oh yeah, it brings you so much closer. Have there been benches clearing brawls in college baseball? I feel like you'd be way more scared for the repercussions in college baseball than you would in professional.
Yeah, good point. I don't feel like I can recall off the top of my head any that are like legendary.
Yeah,
and I think maybe there might be a lot of chirping, and that's also like maybe also an age thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, not age in the sense of like, they're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, but like age, like I got so much more ahead of me. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blow it. Obviously, the repercussions can be a lot stronger in the sense of blowing your opportunity to get to your ultimate goal. But I imagine once you're in Major League Baseball, even the minors, especially if you're kind of resigned to the fact that like, I might be a lifer here. So whatever. But once you get to Major League Baseball, you're like, what are you going to find me? You're going to find me $25K? I'm making easily $800K as like a bench minimum wage player in Major League Baseball. So find me, whatever.
Or cut me and I'll just take my $50 million and just sit around for a while. Like,
guaranteed money. Up front, essentially agreement. I know. Yeah, there's no need to worry about any repercussions because it's all monetary and you've already got the bag. And so, good point. You don't see it in college, but maybe that adds to it the drama a bit because the intensity can just build and build and build and never reaches a head, never gets to a point where you can settle it. And the only way to settle it is on the field. So, we've seen our own players really get after dugouts, and once it's settled, they feel it all. The release, like dugouts over there.
If you're not sure what we're talking about, check our merch store. There's a shirt about what we're talking about.
Exactly.
I think like having that chip on your shoulder is good no matter what. And I feel like we keep teasing this because I'll say it again. We're going to get into this more. But going down to Lexington, Kentucky, like I saw some clips of their fans in the regional. And all I have to say, Beaver fam, is get ready to get really annoyed. It looks like it's gonna be a fairly hostile environment, but having that chip on your shoulder is the mentality you want going into an environment like that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if anything, that'll motivate you. And I know this team has had some trouble with the road and playing up to their potential. Maybe having some chippiness in regionals will allow them to have some fire going on the road again for supers. Before we get into talking baseball, and of course that's the big news from this week. They were essentially the only collegiate sport participating in any events this week. So we'll be sure to thoroughly cover the events and look ahead to Super Regionals. But before we do you have a beer, Benny, that you would like to share for our beer segment, whatever it's called nowadays?
Yeah, the whatever it's called segment. I don't, to be honest.
It was in your belligerent Beavs mug that fell to the ground amidst adjusting your ring light. So now you're
I have one. I don't now. Yeah. I think I might start getting back into that though. I mean, now that I'm not really smoking anymore. Yeah, I had fun with that.
You just got to find some good sours. Good sours, good ciders. I think that's a missing component of our podcast. Terry drinks shit beer. Sorry, Terry. Well, sometimes it's
he does.
And I try to just only drink IPAs, so that's boring. Though if you tune into some earlier episodes, I was very much into the sours and very much into some of them stouts.
Yeah.
I had some very thick stouts that were
you did
hot cocoa-esque looking color. But
I would say
it's not time for those.
90 at least 90% of your beers in the last year have been IPAs.
Yeah. I have come down from my double and triple IPA obsession.
Dude,
which lasted
that is crazy.
Far too long, I think, than most people should allow themselves to enjoy. But I did enjoy it. I just I realized, why have one double IPA when you can have two IPAs? It just is. That's true. And we love math on this podcast,
dude. We do. I have to say, my first IPA was with super secret producer Iskander. And it was like I was used to drinking like real shit beer before that. And so I was sort of like pounding them, and I got through 3 and Skins was like, oh yeah, these are like just sit around and sip beers. These aren't like pound beers. And it was Ninkasi's Triceratops, which is super strong. So yeah, and like I feel like getting like wasted off of IPAs, like quick wasted, is not fun. And taking 3 beers to the dome in like 20 minutes, it was.
That's a coma inducing drunk. That's when you're like, I'm just like too lazy and tired to do anything now. I'm almost on the verge of spinning.
That's it. Yeah.
Speaking of being, before I talk about, actually, I'll just share my beer and then I'll talk about the verge of spinning. So I'm drinking a Starburst, nothing special.
Oh yeah,
but
nice.
It's been a while since I've had a Starburst on here, at least officially during my beer segment selection. But speaking of spinning, I went on Friday night to, this is good. I went to the Rose Festival. I went down on the waterfront.
Oh, fuck. I forgot that this weekend.
Yeah. And I'd never been, but I love a good carnival. Love just I go on. I want all the junk food, and especially one that had.
And it's a good one too.
Oh, it's a good one. One I was shocked it was empty. It loaded up a bit by like when the sun started to go down. So I think people were just kind of there for the lights and the fun and the nightlife before maybe hitting somewhere else downtown. But we got there like at 6 o'clock on Friday, thinking like it's gonna be jammed.
Okay.
It was there were at least half a dozen rides at a time that had no line at a time, so you could just choose which one you wanted to walk on, and then they would just like have you ride it solo. So we met up with Funky Paul Molina and Katie the Goat, and went on some good rides. Funky Paul Molina and I went on the one. It's not the Gravitron or the Spacetron one where you just like lean on the side and it's inside. This was the one where you lean on the side, but it's outside, and the only thing they have you strapped in with is like a very loose, like tractor-esque level belt that just like hooks, around a loop on the other side, and it like sags down your thighs. And they're like, no one gives you any instructions, like hang on to the rails or stand up straight or anything. And we start spinning in circles, and we're like going 360, and we're like, whoa, like being like kind of an obnoxious, annoying. But then we start to go up. We're like, whoa. And then it's a tilt-a-whirl. And then they start to tilt us.
Yeah.
Until we were like, almost perpendicular with the ground. And even Funky Palmelina was like, oh, I feel like a wheel. Because we're just like going over and over and over, up and down.
Dude, had you guys had a couple drinks before you went on that?
No, but they had the Oregon Brewers Fest at the Rose Festival now. So they had like a little subset of it. So they're not doing it anymore, right? Sadly, they're not doing their actual Brewers Fest. I think that's bad. Whoever was owning it didn't want to do it anymore, and they had run into financial trouble with the pandemic, and it was tough the last couple of years. Were like super hot during it in the summertime, like heat wave hot or smoke wildfire season. So they just kind of like lost a lot. I think they just bowed out. But as we got off the ride, I said to Funky Palmelina, I was like, this is what it felt like in college. Like these spins that like I just can't stop, and I'm stumbling. Yeah. And I just want it to be normal. It was almost to the T how some of those days and nights felt in Corvallis back in the day. Yeah. But as we got off that ride, I had bought way too many tickets thinking that my kids would want to ride all these rides. Well, poor Penelope was too short for like every ride except for like 3. No. And one of them, I was like, you're tall enough, let's go. So she gets all excited. She's climbing up the stairs, and this guy's like, no, too small. I was like, what? He's like, the little girl is too small. And I was like, Poppy, you're too small. I'm sorry. They say you don't make the height, limit. And she was like kind of like bummed and like got down. And we all got down and walked back. And then I was jokingly saying later that Penelope won't do any rides now after she got kicked off a ride. And then she started bawling. No. And then she thought that she was kicked off every ride. So even the rides that were made for like babies, she wouldn't go on because she was like, no, she kept saying, no, they kicked me out. They kicked me out. I'm not going on. They kicked me out. So we had a whole day of, I bought, I don't know, $120 worth of tickets, thinking, oh, there's 4 of us and it's $12 a ticket. So that's like, a couple, 2 or 3 rides a person. And Ev was like, I'm only going to go on rides that Penelope can go on. And then she was like, I'm not going on any rides. I got kicked out.
Well, that's a good big brother, but that helped Funky Palmelina.
Oh yeah, that's why I got him on the ride. And then afterwards, I had all these tickets to blow. So I'm like, Ev, let's go play games. All these games are rigged. Whatever, we're gonna go play a game. And he's like, I was like, pick a game. I don't care. We just need to get rid of these tickets. And he goes to the ring toss. The bottles all lined up, and you throw the little tiny rings. They're like, I don't know, $quarter sized openings maybe. Right. And the guy was like, are these for you or for your dad or your mom? Because we were staying behind him. And he's like, I was like, oh, they're for him. He's like, all right, well, how about I give one to mom and one to dad, and then just for free, and they can show you how it's done. And so I'm like, okay. So I give mine. I'm like, Ev, you got to make sure you throw it like this. And I throw my one ring. Dink. Right on the bottle.
No shit.
There was like 6 like carny workers there, like they just all turned their heads and looked at me like in the same booth, and they were like shocked, absolutely shocked. And so he was like, did
you get one of the big animals?
Huge. Dude, we got a 4-foot tall Sonic the Hedgehog that is massive.
What? Dude, you had to have felt like a boss walking around the Rose Festival.
Except for I was like, oh no, because I looked at all the prizes when I threw mine, being like, I hope we don't win anything here. Because like I even said as we walked in, I go, we're not doing games until the end when we're leaving, so we don't have to carry something around all night. And then this was like 20 minutes into being there, I win this body-sized Sonic the Hedgehog.
Dude, that is crazy because I've always associated, like I went to the Rose Festival every year when I was younger. Like the Rose Festival, did you guys do the night parade? I hope they still have it.
I don't know if they have it. They might. Like, I know they do like the regular parade, but I haven't seen the night one.
Yeah, so they have the grand floral parade, but they also at least used to have they call it the Starlight Parade. And it's where it's like a parade, but everyone has their like floats, or like the bands that like their uniforms will all have like glow bands on or something like that, right? It was like, honestly, as a kid, one of the coolest things. But so I do that, and I go to the Rose Festival every year, but it was always like the last week of school, and it was always like so warm. So the fact that it's 58 degrees outside with an atmospheric rainstorm does not seem like it coincides with the Rose Festival.
Well, they have it like so 3 weeks now, 3 weekends at least. Maybe it's 2 weeks in between that they do the festival. And so Friday night was great weather. It was actually like perfect. It was like 70 something, and then it dropped to like low 60s. So it was like hoodie weather once the sun started going down. But before that, it was like t-shirt, shorts. But the guy also the guy though, he also handed me the Sonic, by the way. So Ev didn't make any, Annie didn't make one, and then the guy hands me the Sonic as we're leaving, and I was very reluctant to like accept it. And he like first he like shakes my hand, he's like, congratulations, like super like just deadpan. He's like, congratulations, never come back here again.
Was Poppy like, these people hate us?
Yeah, probably. I didn't even think about that. But like, I had to assume they didn't expect any winners, let alone a guy to win who was given a free ring, one free ring, and threw it like first toss, boom, ringed it. So shout out to you guys at the ring toss booth at the Rose Festival Carnival thing. Shout out to the Tilt-A-Whirl. I also went on one that was like the tornado or something, where it was like 3 pods. And then it like spun you in circles in 3 pods, but then also twisted you as it spun you.
Dude.
That one made me nearly sick. That was after the Brewfest stop. So, and a corn dog. And I also had, oh God, what was it? It was like these mini pancakes that were covered in chocolate sauce and cocoa pebbles and marshmallows and whipped cream.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Fair Food's the best.
I know.
Fair Food is
that was
so
my dinner.
Good. Dude, yes. Yeah, my parents live out in Iowa. The Iowa State Fair is the largest state fair in the country. And the food that they have there, I just live vicariously through my parents. I mean, they have like the well-known deep fried butter. But
I was looking for that. I could not find it.
Super good. Oh, dude.
I would eat it.
I've never had it.
I would eat it. But I mean, I've tried.
I have heard it's good because it comes with like dipping sauces.
And it has to be covered in sugar, right? Like inside of the the breading or the frying, like, you know, the coating.
I'm sure.
It's got to have some sugar.
Yeah.
There's no way you just get like butter and be like,
probably a lot.
This is just delicious. Unless it's dipped in chocolate or something, maybe. But
yeah.
Carnival food, carnival rides. I'm not afraid of any of them. I'm willing to do all of it. So if you want to go to the Rose Festival and you want to go ride some rides and try some deep fried butter, if we can find it, hit us up. Let us know. I'm down to go. I'm not afraid anymore. I feel like Kevin McAllister.
Yeah. Oh man. God, that makes me want to go down to Portland soon. Like within the next 3 weeks.
Well, no, now that was weekend 2. So you have one more weekend.
Oh.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
It would have made more sense to go down this last weekend so I could have caught a game at Goss.
I know. I really wanted to do that.
That crowd just looked insane.
Yeah. Way to bring that back to baseball. And before we get into baseball, let's talk about who is presenting the episode. And it's very related to baseball because it's a brand that goes by the name Seam Headed. Seams, like baseball seams, softball seams. And Seam Headed is a proud sponsor of the Belligerent Beavs podcast. They are one of the most enthusiastic and diamond sports-driven lifestyle brands on the planet. All they do is embrace diamond-themed culture. They make apparel for fans of any game where you hit a round ball with a stick and run to a base. Everything you can think of. They envision the way that the sport is played so much differently, I think, than most people do. They've got different types of merch that are plays on words. They've got different types of merch that are plays on imagery. And all of it is for their love of the game and trying to encourage and support those who see baseball and softball as a way of life. So if you're in the market for some baseball or softball themed merch, and you're looking to catch the latest in the diamond-themed fashion biz, check out seamheaded.com. When you're at seamheaded.com, check out the exclusive Belligerent Beavs collection. Tons of stuff. We've talked about it for years. It's all dope. And what is the most dope, sometimes referred to as doper, it is when you check out your gear on seamheaded.com and use checkout code CHOPPA. You get not just 31% off, but you pay how much percent retail, Benny?
69%, and it is pretty nice.
That is a nice discount. Remember to check out seamheaded.com. Use checkout code CHOPPA or Belligerent Beavs. I don't remember. Try them both. But when you do, one of them will unlock 31% off your purchase. Shout out to Seamheaded.
Yeah. And Pat the Bat, who runs Seamheaded, the creator, CEO, and president of Seamheaded, is probably one of the larger Oregon State fans I know. At least when he came to Corvallis to come visit us,
yeah.
he was a massive Oregon State fan. So support him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Support him.
And he makes some really cool stuff.
Last I heard from him was actually earlier today, and he's in France. He was at the Lou, and he was there, at least in an Oakland A's hat as an A's fan, growing up in the Bay Area. And I asked if he was scouting for the next A's unrealistic relocation destination.
Yeah, I hope he's doing okay as a fan. That is a shit situation.
Yep. He said it's roughly the same likelihood of it happening as Vegas. So that's your inside scoop from the whatever A's. They don't even have it next season. They won't even have a city. They'll just be the Athletics. And so
yeah. What a crazy. We'll have to talk because I don't want to bore our fans. Yeah, I don't want to bore our fans with this because I am pretty sure that 99% of them don't care. But we'll have to talk about this offline because it is a crazy situation of what's going on down there. Vegas could not be shitting the bed more than what they are right now.
Yeah, or not to mention how much they don't want Major League Baseball in Vegas. I mean, I'm pretty sure the mayor was like, "Don't do this."
Yeah. Anyways. And Major League wants, MLB wants them, clearly.
Yeah, that's what they want to do. Speaking of don't do this, and instead do this, was what we were saying all afternoon, all weekend, as we rooted for Beavers baseball.
Yeah.
In regional play. Benny, you paid close attention all weekend. You hung on every pitch. What was your feeling, I guess, coming out of the first two games as we knew, okay, we're awaiting a partner in the regional final?
Yeah, man, baseball's such a weird sport because if you are honestly, I don't know much about Tulane baseball. I know they have a good history. They're the number 4 seed coming in this year, which usually means you're not a great team. It usually means that you won a conference championship to get in, and you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't win that conference championship. But, dude, that game made me nervous. That game was nerve-wracking. We were down, I think, going into the 4th inning. But this team just sort of finds a way to win. And I know that's an overused cliche, but it just felt true this week. Like the Tulane game, I thought was sort of exactly what we needed, to be honest. We had our ace out there, Aiden May, who has just been throwing fuego the last month and a half, and he came out and didn't have his best stuff. Like he probably had his worst start since April, to be honest. And the Gavin Turley Grand Slam, I think, like those two things put together was exactly what we needed, because one, it shows, like, it reinforces to the team, like no game should be taken for granted. And the Gavin Turley Grand Slam was just sort of that, like, okay, we're a little rattled, and then that Grand Slam just like, all right, we're back in it, and like that reignited the team in a way that I don't think that they could have been ignited if they didn't have a deficit to start the game. And I thought that played out really, really beautifully. And yeah, I mean, like the bats clearly showed up this weekend, and the pitching, honestly, was hard to watch at times. I think Kamatz had a fantastic game against Irvine yesterday, or was that? No, that was Saturday. He just threw a gem of a game. But yeah, like it never felt like Oregon State was going to, like, was in a position to like lose. Like there were some nerve-wracking moments, but it felt like Oregon State was in control, at least in the first two games, I would say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think yesterday we talked about this over our group chat, and it was like, what's going on with Segura? You know, like he pitched so well against Arizona. He gave us a chance. We didn't pull through for him. And is it the situation that's just too much to shoulder for him right now? Is it the conditions, at least by ESPN's standards, slightly diminishing conditions from what had it been from the start of the game, had clearly deteriorated so much that Segura had a tougher time than the Anteaters opener. But
yes,
what I've noticed with this team is if the bats are hot, the starters help. The starting pitching helps the relief, or the relief picks up the starters. It's usually that equation if the bats are hot.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that both starting pitching and the bullpen blow it with the bats are hot. We've had some of those games this year, I know. But the trend is to become one of those two pitching groups is dealing, or can at least sustain some sort of competitiveness or lead. And they do so while the bats are awake and really destroying baseballs. And I think what we saw yesterday evening was that this team was already willing to claw back and fight for Segura. They did it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, let's see what happens now. Is he going to find his footing? Are the nerves going to be calmed down? Will the rain let up?
Is his arm going to stay attached to his body after throwing 40 pitches in the first inning?
Yeah, exactly. And then what we saw was the rain didn't let up, and therefore the game was delayed. So it was delayed yesterday. Of course, Sunday, June 2nd. We're recording this on Monday, June 3rd, meaning we were recording the same day that the game one of the regional finals was completed, and the Beavers pulled out the victory after a delay in the middle of the fourth inning. And they had to go to different pitchers, of course. They had to kind of go by bullpen committee through the game. and they hung on. They closed it out with Holmes on the mound, so they found a little bit of the standard structure for finishing a game despite it being separated by whatever it was, 12 hours or 15 hours or whatever. And so, yeah, I think what I saw from this team this weekend was that resiliency, was that picking up your teammate, was most of the players were operating maybe at their peak ability.
It felt like it.
And I hope that's not just a spike. I hope that this is a trend.
Yeah, because you see how the bats performed in the Pac-12 tournament, and you're just like, oh no, this is not good. Our pitchers have to have just like their absolute A game, or where this regional could get out of hand. And all of a sudden the bats heat up. But here's the thing that is just like so mind-boggling to me is traditionally, like you said it, this team has struggled on the road this year. And so if you just look at the Pac-12 tournament and then the regionals, Pac-12 tournament being away from Corvallis Regionals, being in Corvallis in a vacuum, like it would make one to be nervous about these bats going to Lexington, Kentucky. But you look at the series before the Pac-12 tournament in Arizona, and with the exception of the last game, like the bats were super high.
And the last game, Segura was high.
Yes. Yeah. And not to sort of backtrack in our conversation, but suspending that game, I think, really gave the advantage to UC Irvine, because like part of the advantage of winning your first two games is that your bullpen is rested, where the team that you're playing, their bullpen is depleted. Yeah. And so who knows what they're going to do with Segura. I know like throwing 40 or 30, whatever, it was high 30s or 40 pitches in that first inning. Like that's really going to set your trajectory for the rest of the game. So he may have lasted another inning or so, but he still would have pitched some more games. And UC Irvine's pitchers, or their bullpen, did get an extra 12 hours of rest, which I think is important to some degree. But that's all to say, like, when you go into Lexington, Segura, you're right that the bats picked it up for Segura, and so did the relief pitching picked it up for Segura. But like, that shit can't happen in Lexington.
Yeah.
Because Kentucky's much, I shouldn't say much better. They're a better team than UC Irvine. UC Irvine's really good.
Yeah.
But you're also going to have a Kentucky team that has a bullpen that's not depleted, and you're playing on the road. Like, you had alluded to it, or maybe mentioned it in our text conversation, of like just a sort of questioning if this moment may have been too big for Segura. And it was, it was you that said that, like, yeah, that could be true, but also the elements could have been playing a role in it as well. And the more that we saw of that game, and the more that we saw, like, it wasn't just Segura that was having trouble finding the strike zone, I think you're right. But I do think it's telling that all happened in the first inning.
Yeah.
And he settled down after that, which makes me feel like a lot of that first inning probably was nerves.
Well, his second,
and if you're going to get
next
nerves,
innings weren't much better. I mean, he threw less pitches, but his location was still way off. And I had to say,
yeah,
you have a note, like, there were some, I mean, not cause for concern, but more worrisome pitching outings and regionals. And so which one are you the most concerned about heading into supers? And I would say, I think it's Segura, because,
dude, 100%,
because I think the elements impacted everybody. Okay. Take that away.
Yeah.
What else did he do to struggle? Like, why else was he struggling that other pitchers maybe weren't struggling as hard? And I think it was the moment. And that could also be something to be not worried about, because he got that off his back. It's done.
Yeah.
He's been out there. He stood through it. He pitched through it, which is, again, great to see the coaching staff let him figure it out. Because if you're not going to figure it out now and you have to use them later, it's going to happen later. And it's going to not be it's going to be a worse situation. So let him figure it out now, which they did. They let him stay out there. Mm-hmm. I saw Weber grabbing him as they were running off the field for the first inning, trying to instill some confidence back in him again.
Yeah.
And clearly this was the right moment to let all the kinks get ironed out, especially when there's a very easy excuse to fall back on of the conditions and weather. And even mentally for him to think, I had a bad outing, but man, it was dumping, at least on baseball standards. It was dumping.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely mental gymnastics that you can play if you're in Segura's spot, because, you could be him and saying, look, if it was nice weather, this game was on ESPN, right? Like if this game was nice weather, I could have really shown him what I'm made of, and I didn't have that chance. And then you get a little fire under your ass, right? And I hope, and this very well could be the situation, and I really hope that it is, that, in sports movies, you always have that scene of like the talking heads casting doubt on whatever player the movie's about, right? And I think a lot of people are probably doing that with Segura. And, the great stories are made by these situations where people like Segura go out and then they shut a team like Kentucky out in Game 3, a deciding game. And that's what I'm nervous about, is if it was nerves, you're playing at home, so you don't have a hostile crowd. You have a game in hand. So it wasn't the end of the world if we lost that game. We still had another game to play with an even further depleted Irvine bullpen. And it's regionals. Not to say that there's not pressure at regionals. There absolutely is. But as you get further along, just like in any tournament, the pressure is going to ramp up. So if Segura is starting Game 3, which why would he not be, in Lexington, that means he's the starting pitcher in a game that is the deciding game of if you go to Omaha and you can reach the extremely high expectations that were put on you as a team, or you go home. And you go home as a program that has never been in as much uncertainty as they are in right now.
Yeah.
And that is a ton of pressure.
I'm stressed.
And that's what makes me really nervous.
Now I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But, hopefully situations like the one he faced help him out. And I think you make a great point of like the coaches let him figure it out. I think Weber called some really great games too throughout the regionals. But, you don't learn unless you're given the chance to figure it out. And he was like, you're right. Like his pitching didn't go from like an F performance to an A performance, but it went to a performance of which like he didn't give up any more massive innings like he did in the first.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Because I don't think Oregon State is sweeping this series. I don't think they're going to win the first 2 games. They could. Aiden May and Kamatz are absolutely capable of shutting down any offense. So they could. But I have a feeling that it's going to 3 games. And we'll see.
I hope it only goes 2. And I actually feel like it will go 2. We haven't touched on them yet. And the reason why is maybe we can talk about, their performance in regionals. One of them was talked about. Micah McDowell let his feelings known. Love it. Bring the fire to Super Regionals, please. Gavin Turley. If there was a time when the Giants had all these dudes that were just like these very stoic white guy, bland, no personality, just played baseball. It's all they ate and drank, slept, breathed. And everyone called them Buster Posey clones. And they were Buster Posey clones. And also it probably helped that he was on the team showing them the ropes.
Sure.
Gavin Turley is Mitch Canham clone. He is exactly the same dude, the same just patience, same calmness, no moments too big. He understands his talents, his abilities. He's well-spoken. They even look the same. They nearly look identical.
They do. Yes, they do resemble each other for sure.
And so, yes, 5 Grand Slams for Gavin Turley, including the one this weekend. I'm not surprised. He's got his cloner manager, head coach showing him the ropes. And it's probably some sort of Mitchell Canham on somehow that Gavin Turley has been reproduced in a lab and has come back with a little more pop than his donor DNA had. And that is why we have Gavin Turley, and that is why he is so reminiscent of Mitchell Canham. But I would say these are my reasons why I think that it's gonna be settled in 2. Why I think Oregon State will win the Super Regionals no matter what. And of course it starts with the starting pitching. And I think that May would love to have his outing back and do it again from regionals.
Yeah.
I would say that's baseball, which is such a dumb saying, but it answers so many concerns about a player's individual and specific performance in a game. That's baseball. And he had a game that was just baseball. And I don't anticipate him having a back-to-back performance in that same manner. If anything, I think that most players bounce back to their means pretty quickly in college baseball. So I think that May will have a great start. I think Komatz has found another groove, and that will be huge. I think the bullpen has settled down a lot. I think that Holmes has really embraced that closer role lately, and not just really embraced it as a role and what he's tasked with, but with the mental fortitude required to be out there in those moments. I think that he is it has overtaken his persona and his identity. And that's what leads major league closer roles is you're just different and you can just do it. And that's what I think Holmes has been demonstrating over the last couple of games when he's been out there to close it out and just shake off anything and go after the next batter. But the other parts are the offense is clicking. And I'm not going to just only talk about this on the side of why Oregon State can do it, but there's proof of why I think that we can do it against Kentucky and why we can do it on the road. We talked about it last week. Kentucky, of all like the top 8 or 10 seeded teams, had the worst win percentage at home of all the teams. Had a worse win percentage than Oregon State at home. And obviously that's pretty easy to do given how well we play at Goss.
Right.
But they're clearly not driven by this home environment. They're just, it's just not. And then maybe there's just some games that got away from them or that they could have had, they had in their grasp, whatever. On paper, they didn't have it at home. And I don't anticipate them having that big of an advantage at home. I think that the Arizona series had more meaning to the players for us, for the road and being on the road and what was at stake than playing at a neutral Scottsdale Stadium for this pretend championship in a sense, because it was a crapshoot tournament, and look what happened to those champions. So again, who's
that's rough.
Who's still playing, who's not, right? Maybe the players looked at it that way. Like, we're gonna be the ones that will still be playing. We don't care about this tournament. We want to be ready for playing for Omaha. Also, our team is known to capitalize on getting on base and big home runs, timely home runs. Well, Kentucky's pitchers are not great about keeping people off base. and they are not great about not giving up the long ball. So I think that we have a really solid chance to have at least enough opportunities to make them pay with free bases. Look, their defense is great. For the most part, their pitching's pretty good. They've got some outstanding players. Ryan Waldschmidt's going to be maybe a first-round pick in the MLB draft. He's not Travis Bazzana echelon. He might even barely crack our number 2 on our team. But they're pretty balanced, top to bottom. And they've got pop. They've got speed. They also have, very little errors on the defensive side. Their pitching is pretty good. I would say that it might be because of the way that their head coach manages their pitching staff and their bullpen. It does seem like he does a really good job of getting guys in the right position or out of the wrong position more often than not. And that's a tough task in college baseball, to know your staff that well. And I would say Mingione, I don't know, but either way, he's got a good grasp of his staff. And that will be the biggest challenge for us, is capitalizing on opportunities while we have them, because I think he'll have very, very short ropes for those who are showing that something has gone wrong or is about to go wrong. Or we'll be hoping that he pulls somebody because their starters are playing so well or throwing so well, but he won't, because he'll trust them to go deep into a game, maybe deeper than they have in the past or ever. And so that's going to be the matchup to watch. There's going to be, really, well, one thing I think is hilarious is there's also the aspect that they do throw one of their utility outfielders in as a relief pitcher. And he has 6 appearances this season, including a save. And these weren't games that were just gimmies. Really? These are like they were real games. James McCoy, and he's got a ERA of 0. So,
oh wow,
there's some tricks up the sleeve. There's some ways to utilize pitchers without, dropping, any actual pitcher or position player. Maybe like in some sort of double switch, they can leverage him and then, make sure that they can still get a pitcher in for somebody when need be, or delay that decision for an inning or two. But yeah, there's definitely some dudes who can throw in their bullpen for sure. And I would say if we don't jump on these opportunities with their starters, and it's a close game and we have to hand it off to our bullpen, or we have to rely on our starters to maintain, it will be tough treading. But I think that their starters do have the propensity to give up some big flies and to give up some walks. And our team, when on offensively, will capitalize on that and can make the team pay.
I think, this is the Oregon State team that you wanted to see going into the postseason and to start the postseason, right? Like, we finished the season 9-3. We won our last 3, our last 2 against a really fucking good team. And so what's that? We've gone 12-3 in our last 15 games. We've seen a lot of promising stuff from the bats against some really good pitching staff. I mean, we were hitting against the guy who just set the record for the most strikeouts in UC Irvine history. Now, I don't know a ton about UC Irvine pitchers, but I know that UC Irvine has a great history of a program. So the bats are showing up. I think you're right about Aiden May. It's tough for me to believe that he's going to have 2 straight outings where it's just like what's happening. Kamatz has been, I mean, he's been lights out the last three starts. So I think it will go 3, but I also buy in to what you're saying. It's kind of an unfair matchup for both schools, though, and I say that like there is one, I think it was 247, so take it with a grain of salt, but they came out with their future odds of schools that they've given odds to win the whole thing, and this is post regional play. And I think Oregon State was sitting at 6th best odds, and Kentucky was sitting at 3rd best odds. So, I think it's pretty clear that people are pretty high on whoever comes out of the Super Regional. Now, like, I wouldn't even say dislike SEC baseball. I dislike a lot of SEC baseball fans. And I also just I can't stand when media members do things like allow, 9 of the 16 seeded teams, the regional hosts, to be from the same conference. Yeah. I think the SEC is the best conference in college baseball. I don't argue with that, but I argue with how truly how good they actually are, because they're being touted as the only conference that's worth a sniff in college baseball. And I don't think that's true. I think UC Irvine was a very underrated team that came into Corvallis that had a lot of really, really good players with a major league future. And so, yeah, I think on paper, and I may still just have this rattling in my head, just looking on paper, you're like, oh, this is going to be really tough. Playing on the road at an SEC school who is really good, who has some pretty decent starting pitchers, with an Oregon State team that hasn't played exceptional on the road. It just doesn't look great on paper. But I think when you dive into the numbers like you did, it's not maybe as crazy as you would think on first glance that Oregon State could win this in 2. I think that they will win this. I think they're playing too hot right now, and they have too many players that we've known have had talent, and they've shown that talent. But the numbers they've put up this year have been really good. Thinking of Micah McDowell and Travis Bazzana.
And Hainline,
at the top of the
right
list.
Now, let's talk about the guys in hot night right now. Guerra, Hainline,
dude. And I remember Guerra had been struggling too at the end of the season. Hainline had an average, this was a month into the season, had an average of sub 200, way sub 200. So yeah, Hainline's come on, not so much just in the last couple of weeks. It's been more the last half of the season. But Guerra is playing his best. Yeah. And here's the thing, Bazzana went 4 for 11 with 2 home runs in the regional. And I think some would argue that that's underperforming. Hey. It's underperforming based on his numbers this season.
Well, he almost had another one today.
But I think he did almost have another one today. But I think there were also some questionable calls with Bazzana. And I think that if you ask him, he would want a lot of those balls back. This is all to say, I'm not worried about Travis Bazzana. But you do have a lot of other players, and you mentioned it, Guerra, Hainline,
Trotsky,
Turley, Trotsky. These guys are playing some of their best baseball we've seen all year. And some of them, you're sort of waiting for it. When is this going to happen? Throw that in with the pitching staff where we did see some falter a little bit this weekend. I think if you pack them all into just looking at the pitching staff overall from a high level view, they're playing some of their best baseball. I don't know if I'd say their best, but some of their best. They're definitely doing very well compared to what we've seen at some points of the season. And look, like this team was top 5 for a lot of the year, and they stumbled in sort of that, like, not quite the end of the season, because we did see good things at the end of the season, but like maybe 3 weeks before the end of the season, like 6 to 3 weeks before the end of the season, we weren't playing very well, and we dropped into, you know, that like outside the top 5. And I think when this team is playing on all cylinders, firing on all cylinders, like we are seeing right now, they are absolutely a top 5 baseball team. And so you have to take that into consideration. Like, this does look, I mean, it's the number 15 seed going up against the number 2 seed. And in any sport like that, if the 15 seed's playing at the 2 seed away, like, that's not good odds. But Oregon State's not the 15th best program in college baseball.
Not even
right
close.
Now. They are a top 5. Yeah. So I think that just looks skewed when you look at it on paper too.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see. I think this is going to be, like, from like unbiased perspective, from an outsider's perspective, this probably has the most intrigue of any of the regional matches.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that might be on paper that's lying. There might be a lot that is unsettled until the games are played between how people view these teams. And yeah, I just can't wait for this to get started. By the way, this is Kentucky's 3rd Super Regionals in school history that they have advanced to. It's the 3rd time in the past 7 seasons, or at least the past 7 NCAA tournaments that they played in, that they've advanced. Okay. Their pitching staff, look, I don't think that their regional was all that special, but their pitching staff did not allow a run in the final 14 innings, and then only 1 run over the final 21 innings that they pitched in their regional. Though they had a little bit of a tough start, they definitely locked in as well. So I think this is going to come down to, look, 2 elite defenses, they cancel each other out. Then you're left with one team that has pretty talented pitching, but is prone to mistakes. But their head coach and pitching coach help them avoid said mistakes. And then you've got some hitters that can get hot and also can disappear. It really is a timing series.
It 100% is. And like, look, this, where my other take was unbiased, this is very much biased. I think when you're the 15 seed, you get matched up with the 2nd best 2 seed. I've said it a number of times on this episode, but UC Irvine is a very good baseball team. When you're the number 2 seed, you get matched up with the 2nd worst number 2 seed. So, like, Oregon State's path, Oregon State going 3-0 in their regional, 2 games which were against a team that the selection committee is essentially saying is like neck and neck with Oregon State in terms of talent, is a lot different than Kentucky winning the games that they won. That's not to say that Kentucky isn't playing as well, but like, it was a different talent pool. When you look at the 2 regionals.
Absolutely. Some names, of course, to keep an eye on. So Mason Moore, their starting pitcher, he was ill during the regional, but somehow with some bags of IVs was able to make it and pitched very well, especially against Indiana State. Another name that I did not talk about, I talked about Ryan Waldschmidt, Ryan Nicholson, their first baseman, slugger, middle of the order, is another threat in the lineup. And then they've got Devin Burks, who's just a great catcher, all-around game caller, and a pretty decent hitter as well. And so keep an eye on them. That could be those will be the ones you want to boo very loudly from your TV, at least from your living room towards your TV, when they're up, and give our pitchers some support. They'll feel the vibes no matter where you're at. Let's see. So first game, what is that? What do we got here?
I don't think they've released a schedule yet, have they?
No, Games
thought
are
that's
all
coming
TBA.
tomorrow.
Yeah, so those will be announced tomorrow. But obviously, it's coming this weekend, this coming weekend, and presumably, about a week from now, when we have episode 145, we will know the outcome of the Super Regionals. So tune in, show them some love. Any final thoughts on baseball, Benny? Any ideas about? Let's see. We've talked about predictions. Who's going to win? Let's just say Beavs win. Okay. Who is your Super Regionals MVP?
Well, the easy answer is clear, like Travis Bazzana. I'm going to say, though, it's going to be Micah McDowell for all the reasons we talked about earlier. I think, dude, like I said, I don't like SEC fans, but they do have the only atmospheres that would rival Goss. And it's, you'll hear a lot of that. You're going to hear a lot of that from both sides. Micah is going to have the final bleep, though. That dude is going to just absolutely throw a torch on Lexington, Kentucky, and light the stadium on fire. I think Micah comes out of those games with at least one dinger, and he is going to have an above 400 batting average when it's all said and done. And I think it's going to be 3 games. But Micah McDowell is going to go off.
Ooh. Okay, so if we're avoiding Travis Bazzana as an obvious and fair choice, not to say I don't think he could do this and be a Super Regionals MVP. I mean, he was MVP of our regionals, but I would say, and you're taking Micah. Okay, fine. I'm gonna go with Gavin. I'm going with Gavin because
that's a solid choice.
Yeah, the Mitchell clone will come through, and maybe there's another Grand Slam in the books.
Yeah, I buy that 100%. I think he would be due for one, actually, if I'm doing my math right, because we do love math. Mason Guerra might hit a ball to Louisville. Like, dude, just fucking crushed that one today. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to in this series against Kentucky. And I said it at the beginning of the episode, and I want to reiterate it. Oregon State fans, like Beaver fam, be prepared to just have steam coming out of your ears. I don't know if you saw this I saw it on Twitter, but I'm sure it was all over the place. It was a couple of Kentucky fans who got tickets right behind home plate, like right in line of sight of the pitcher. And they were in unison popping up as soon, like the pitcher was winding up. And as soon as he was making the move for his release, they popped up and they did it in a way that was like this massive distraction. And like, obviously people of the other team, I think it was Indiana State that they were playing today or last night. They were clearly upset about it. But the crazy part is no one came in to do anything. Like none of the ushers came down and was like, hey, you need to knock it off. Umpire, I mean, I don't know if the umpires can do anything, but like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but shit like that might happen. So yeah, it's going to be intense. It will be so fun, but also like we said it last week, this is what we're here for. This is one of the most exciting times of the year for Oregon State. Like it just is. We're in the Super Regionals. We have a chance to do what we sought out to do at the beginning of the season. And I think we have a very, very good chance of doing that. And if we do, this next weekend is going to be a blast.
Yep. And speaking of, again, shout out to Goss, all the Beaver fam, all the Beaver fans that were in attendance this weekend.
Yes.
Did a tremendous job to close out Goss for the 2023-24 season. Officially now the end of the home era as a Pac-12 team. The next time we see the Beavs at Goss, they will be independent, and they will also be crowned College World Series champions. So keep that in mind.
Can we also just say, like, there were a number of regional games where the home team was playing and it wasn't a sellout. And Goss had fans stick through a literal atmospheric rainstorm.
Yeah. And got mad about it being called.
That got mad about it being called. And it was like sub 60 degrees. So, dude, that group of people that was there, huge shout out. Hats off to you guys. Like, just way to do us proud. That was awesome to see.
Yep. And before we close up for baseball, just so you know, if you translate Guerra, if you know where I'm going with this, from Spanish to English, it translates to war. So, time to go to war in Lexington, Kentucky. They know, they're familiar with it. So are we.
Yeah, Micah McDowell did that translation before the game against UC Irvine. He's ready.
Yeah, he's ready to go to war. Best of luck to Beaver baseball. We'll be watching. Tune in. As soon as we get all the times and days and networks, we'll be sure to put it out on our socials. Before we get out of here, there's a couple shout outs to Beaver royalty. And one of them's not in the notes, Benny, but we'll start with Jade Carey is at least headed to the Olympic trials after finishing with a great score at the Xfinity, whatever championships. And on the same note of Xfinity, I'm bringing my box and modem back to Xfinity this week to cancel. Even though Jade did a great job, she finished third in the vault, fourth in the floor, and I think eighth in the all around. So yeah, she's moving on to continue to represent Team USA, and she's one of 15 remaining athletes for the team headed to trials. So way to go, Jade.
Oh, so it wasn't, she does still have some work to do to make the Olympic team, because it's going to get cut from 15 down to,
I don't know the exact number. Yeah, I think it's something like that, but I think either way at this point, it's at least a guarantee that she's an alternate, which is why she was called up previously in her first Olympic appearance. So it was a big milestone, and it does essentially confirm that she's some part of Team USA, but there's still some work to do to be, on the main team and competing as kind of like a starter in a sense for Team USA. So I think Olympic trials are there in Minnesota this 2 weeks. I'll have to double check the dates.
Terry better be there.
Terry better be there. He better be there.
Yeah.
If he goes all the way to Italy to pretend like he's not dead, then he better be at the Olympic trials in his own backyard where he's not buried 6 feet deep, because it's not my backyard.
Yeah, well, looking at our text thread, he's been doing a really bad job of pretending that he's not dead.
Yeah.
Dude has been silent.
Yeah, it's true.
So be ready to hear a lot of Terry next week, because we have
he's going to spill it all on episode 145. And then also, this is a late development, but worthy of a shout out. Oregon State wrestling coach Chris Pendleton. Shout out, Coach Pendleton. We love you on this show.
Yeah.
He's been inducted into the California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Oh, let's go.
Congrats, Coach.
Let's go.
Well deserved. You're a legend in the game. You're a legend in Corvallis. Keep it all up. We love supporting you and your team, and we're proud and very happy with you pulling in the honors of California Wrestling Hall of Fame. That's very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That is very
cool.
What
a great recognition. Okay. I think we covered it all, Benny. There's a whole lot of stuff to cover today.
I think we did. I mean, geez, talking about Olympics, Super Regionals. It's a great time to be a Beaver right now, man. It is. It's awesome, especially for the last rough 12 months that we have had. This
only going up from here.
This is great. This is great. Yeah, no kidding.
Only going up. Hey, do you want to close out this one?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, let me see if I can do it justice. I am Benny L. Benny Wehage. Benny with the okay quaff today. Benny Burner. Benny Bedlam. Because I am fucking crazy.
He's crazy, folks.
And you can find me on the socials at Benny L 1986. And JP Bertram, the Trill J, the underscore Trill underscore J on Twitter, because he is too Trill to be real. And
Terry
at Terrence Horstman is not here, so don't worry about following him. But we are the Belligerent Beavs. I don't remember what Terry says, but I do know that you cannot spell chop 'em without hope. So chop 'em.
Chop 'em.
Chop 'em.
Chop 'em.
And chop 'em.
There's
Beavs back, baby.
There's 5 of us now.
And bleep me because I'm about to say what Micah McDowell's gonna say. So